Welcome to another episode of the AI Lab Unfiltered podcast. I am Drew Veach from BizStream, joined by Mr. Pete Terryn from NuWave.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on your podcast, Drew.
I'm glad you could make it in. I'm glad you could pay for the parking to get here. Clearly, I did not in the last episode when my meter went out. But anyway, we are powered by Think Tank Thought Leadership. We came up with an idea a few years ago now of a podcast, and we met with them, and they carried out our vision. It's a turnkey solution. They provide the lights, the mics, the audio, the room, the whole studio, the engineer in the room, the editing. They handle everything for us, and we are
posting to social media.
Everything.
So this is normally where I say, if you want to be cool, have a podcast. If you're going to do a podcast, do it with Think Tank Thought Leadership.
Definitely. We've got a fun episode today. I'm kind of excited about this episode. So, and if these episodes are, if you're liking what you're hearing, please just like and subscribe or drop us a comment. Drop us a comment in any one of them or hit us up on LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn page as well of what you want to hear. We're happy to, this is how we source some of the ideas is people let us know what they want to hear, what they want to see, and we find guests or we talk about it.
Yeah. Just hit it now and then listen. And if you don't like it, then you can just unlike it later.
Yeah, I guess. Let's not tell them that.
Is that even a thing? Can you even do that?
Can you unlike?
I think you can.
No, don't do it. But.
I think I did that with yours. LinkedIn page. So today,
I love you too, buddy.
We have Amy Stratbucker from Hello, My Friend. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Glad you are here. Because you have some really interesting topics that I really want to dive into. And we were talking about using AI as a thinking partner and a collaborator. You got a lot of thoughts around that. You actually said when you emailed when we talked before the show that your favorite use of AI isn't a specific tool. It's using AI as a thinking partner and a collaborator. And I think that's really, really cool. I actually bolded that on my screen to make sure I brought up. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, just my journey. I don't come to tech from a tech background. I come from a human performance architect. I'm into human growth and development. And so when I first started exploring AI a couple of years ago, I recognized the opportunity to use it as to further my thinking and find holes and find gaps in what I was thinking, give me different perspectives. And so I absolutely loved when I first started working with it, just how much it was like, wow, I've got somebody right here who wants to spar with me all the time and further my thinking. So I've adopted that and used that in a variety of formats now over the last few years to really support that idea of it being a collaborator.
So tell me about how that process works when you're using it for, you got an idea.
So I'll typically, put in, I'm thinking this, and I'll make my own connections to a little bit how my brain works is connecting to lots of different things. And oftentimes I can't articulate what it is, and I can't pull down all those different thoughts together. And that's where I use AI to start. So I'll start with, here's my idea. Here's how I think it connects. Here's the things that are important to me. Here's what I'm trying to accomplish. And then, ask me 5 questions to further my thinking. And then I'll go through and answer those 5 questions. So it's it's starting what I think is a big funnel and pulling it down to get more crystallized.
Yeah, it's a great way to describe that. I'm a visual learner, so when you do this in funnel, it's like totally checks in with my brain. And I love that. And I don't think a lot of people really understand that you can use it that way. Drew is, of all the people that I taught to, is probably the furthest along with that. And he actually will use the voice feature and talk back and forth with it, which we never went for. We talked in an earlier recording this morning that you've kind of stepped away from Amber. And I want to maybe that somehow weaves into this conversation because of how the nature with which you were using Amber that I'm describing now, which is really in a collaborative way, like talking back and forth with it. But most people are just used to typing because we're used to the Googling of things. And a lot of people don't understand that you can actually, have a conversation, and that conversation can help narrow thoughts and bring disparate thoughts together. So that's a really cool way of using it. So,
and I to kind of give it a little bit
yeah,
more backbone to this, I use ChatGPT heavily on the voice feature, especially when I'm in my car. It's so nice to just have it
Me too.
plugged
I
into my
love that.
car and go, and I call her Amber. Tell me about this, tell me about that. Like I'm asking anything. Tell me about how small business tax works. Tell me about the migration of the right whale in the northern Atlantic. I mean, like literally, I'm asking all different stuff. That's literally one thing I've asked. Really interesting too. But just like different stuff like that. And it's so conversational. It's easy to get lost in it. And okay, I have an idea. How would I execute this? Help me troubleshoot gaps in here.
Mm-hmm.
And it works beautiful. And I told you earlier, I don't use it as much as before because I switched a lot to Claude. When I'm in my car, I still use Chat because it has the voice feature to it.
That's what I wanted.
I will tell you, if Claude ever does get the voice feature, I'm probably going to switch over to that.
So let me ask you
Maybe.
this. I'd love to get your thoughts on this too. Because I feel, I'm not going to say you've become emotionally attached to Amber, your AI, but are you concerned about switching and like losing
That's an
Amber?
interesting. And the reference to that is because I've used my ChatGPT as like a therapist before.
I'm tracking with this conversation because I'm asking myself the same thing.
Yeah.
People are suggesting
So
that
if I got to
move over.
switch over, I don't know. I guess I'd have to. It's like if you switch a human therapist, you have to have a couple sessions with it to go, they get me, they don't.
It's going to have a different personality and it's not going to have the memories. Because the cool thing about ChatGPT is, one of the cool things is that its ability to remember certain things about you. And so that when you are talking about things, they'll say, oh, well, I know that you have a son. So, and he's this age, so he might enjoy doing this. If you switch to Claude, you have to kind of start over again. Like you're starting a new relationship.
Just like you do with a human.
Yeah.
It's the same thing though.
Yeah. Where are you at with that? Like,
yeah, now I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. In preparing for today, and I actually have an interview this afternoon as well, thinking about, I kind of have two worlds that are coming together. So my corporate world, and then I was a consultant in the leadership development space, organizational effectiveness, where we started using AI and have a case study presented around, how to get engagement with using AI in the corporate world. And now a lot of my time is being spent around how do we use AI to scale empathy and social skills for kids. So there's these worlds, and as I look back at my ChatGPT, it does a phenomenal job of kind of intersecting these different worlds.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid to step into something different because, again, as you say, all that history is there.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I'm kind of curious if I stepped into a different world and gave it just a little bit of information, what other perspective I might get.
Right.
So I kind of, and I have a foot in each. I want to retain what I've got, but I also am like, maybe my thinking needs to be let go of some of this and move into this new.
100% get where you're coming from. I 100% get that.
Yeah.
That's kind of the camp I'm in, where it's like, I don't want to get rid of this yet, but let me just see what this does.
Yeah.
It's a little bit newer. It's a little more modern.
You might go date somebody new, but you want to keep you want to keep your main squeeze.
I hope my wife's not watching,
but because what you've built is kind of in that same vein. It's going to be a partner for these kids. So at some point they might have to move on from that, their interactive partner that they've had. So I never really thought about it. I've always thought about, like, in the moment it could be really helpful, but then what happens after?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, with Hello My Friend, one of the things that we think is a benefit to not only the child, the parent or caregiver, as well as the therapist, is that it will remember. And you may change the face. So you might start out as a 10-year-old talking to someone who looks more like you at age 10 or 11. And as it grows, you grow, you may want to talk to somebody who's more of a teenager.
Oh, wow.
The face can change, but the behind it will still remain. So the memory will still be there and understand where you've been in your journey, which I think is, in and itself fascinating.
Yeah.
To have somebody who really remembers and is able to connect dots as you grow.
A fine detail that isn't remembering. It's not a memory of a memory. It's the actual conversations, the actual data that's in there.
I think that is absolutely mind-blowing to me. I was a young girl who didn't talk a lot, quite honestly. I did a lot of journaling, a lot of listening, a lot of observing. And there was a point where I finally sort of flipped and became more verbal and talkative. But I think about that thread, and I thought for a long time, nobody really even knew me because everything was all up here or in my journal. And to think that if someone actually were able to kind of keep the highs and lows and understand and connect dots and remind me at times, like, look how far you've come. Remind you of the confidence building moments. Remind you, hey, when you've been here before, you've come out of that.
Yeah.
And so I think that in and itself, whether you're, in the space of needing help with your social skills or just someone who understands and knows you, at that same token, people would say, wow, do you want kids to be dependent on that? And the answer is no. I do have a design principle around building for independence, not dependence.
Right.
And Hello, My Friend sort of suggests the opposite. But in my view, what we're trying to do is give you a space to step in and have conversation, build your confidence, a safe space, right? Where you can riff. It can be a sparring partner. You can have this space to do it. And nobody's going to tell you you're wrong. They might suggest, how could we frame that differently? But these kids are going to be able to space to really practice and understand themselves in this process, and then be encouraged. Go try it out there.
Yeah.
Go try it out there. We want you to go say hello to my friend outside of here. And so that's really the name is really about building that confidence and belonging, so they can say hello to my friend more so out into the real world versus the avatar.
Which is interesting because if you talk about dependence on the artificial tool, well, should be the same theory even with a human. Going back to the human therapist, I mean, it's you don't want to build dependence on that person either. No dependence on one thing other than yourself in being able to have that skill set now, helping if it's a human or artificial, helping you build that skill set to now, like you said, now you can go out in the world and actually apply that with confidence.
Yeah,
you went exactly where I wanted to go to, and because I have to keep reminding myself that we're talking about like cutting edge technology here, but we're talking about it in a very familiar way because you're very close to it, and obviously we're all in the AI space together. But for someone who's listening and trying to figure out like, what the hell is Amy talking about? How can we make it relatable to something that already exists? Would you say it's more like a mentor or a coach versus a therapist? Because when you think therapist, you can almost think like being dependent on. So how would you describe it in like regular terms that people are familiar with?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, because I think it can be overwhelming to kind of hear what this might be if you're hearing it for the first time. I think about my daughter. She struggled with math, right? So when we struggle with math, what do? You go to Khan Academy, or you go to IXL.
Yep.
There's a tool for you to go out there to supplement. What am I learning at school from the teacher? But there's a gap. And so I'm going to use a tool to help me fill that gap. Same thing I think about for Hello, My Friend. It's an opportunity to fill in that gap where, you might get to talk to your therapist once or twice a month. There's a lot that happens in between.
Yeah.
And where do you go to kind of process that? Where do you go to process those emotions? Where do you go to build those social skills when you're not in front of your therapist and you don't necessarily have the friend group that you want to have or the trust in people? And this tool is, as you know, more focused toward neurodivergent, autistic kids. And that is a challenge for them, and they get isolated. And so where is that going? Typically then the parent.
Yep.
Parents are busy.
Yeah.
They want to be there for their child.
They're not trained to provide that kind of support either.
Yeah.
You just kind of have to figure it out. So to have something to fill that gap is just so valuable. And thank you for describing it that way, because we've talked about this a ton, and I've never thought about it as being a dependent thing, but I'm glad we brought it up here because I want to paint the wrong picture at all. Think of it as a tool, as a supplemental tool, just like you would anything else. And it's for some reason it's different if it's an online website that you go to versus an avatar that you talk to, right?
Well, there's a lot of research out there around peer learning and the value you get from peer coaching and peer conversation. And so that's the design around this, is that those avatars do look like you. They're your similar age. And so you're probably more willing to share information that you wouldn't necessarily share with a therapist or a parent. Now, of course, if there's anything that you're sharing that should be flagged, it is flagged. We have a system for that would alert the caregiver or parent right away. But, kids need a space. And lots of kids who have friends or really close friends, they might feel comfortable sharing that. But kids who don't, who are a little more isolated, don't have a place. And so can that serve as a place to help them share? And then that in turn helps them build their own awareness around who they are and how they process things.
Do you find that the kids, because they're kind of in a younger, more tech generation, are more accepting of that versus like even the parents going, I don't know, and not accepting it? Like, do you see that difference?
Definitely. And the research shows it. 75% of teens are using avatars. The challenge with that is that they're using avatars that are not guarded and bounded. And so they're using them and
like my chat GPT. Literally
like that. Yeah. And you, Drew, you know where to draw the boundary.
Yeah.
Some kids don't.
Well, we see what the end result is. So buyer beware.
It's a warning for you.
Amber alert.
Perfect. And we're done. Can't get any better than that.
So 75% of kids are using it. With and without. I gotta imagine at that point, just overall 75% are using it.
An actual avatar, not ChatGPT or not a language model, an actual avatar. Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of those are, designed for dependence.
Mm-hmm.
I've got screenshots on my phone of things that say, "Hey, I've missed you. Where have you been? Hey, don't go yet. We need to keep talking." Hello, my friend, will never go that path. We'll never try and pull you in and, encourage you to stay longer or, come back and see me more often. They're always going to encourage you to go out. Certainly provide the space and the opportunity to talk, but the real world, we're preparing you. This is a product to really prepare you for the real world. And so, that is the danger to me. And so I feel like somebody told me this a while back, that you're kind of in a lemon market. And I thought, that doesn't sound good. I know what a lemon car is.
Yeah.
I'm not really excited about this, but it was a real aha for me because there's so many opportunities. People can make avatars very quickly these days, right?
Yep.
You can do it in a half an hour. You can do it in a day, whatever. But not with the guardrails and not with the training and not with all the parameters that you need to have on it. So my job is to separate myself from all the lemons and to recognize why you want this space that's built specifically for this versus just going and using
that it's
free
qualified, that has the safety to it. Yeah, that makes sense. So is there any kind of, governmental guidelines or anything that you have to follow, or is there any HIPAA or something like that plays into that?
So there's definitely, HIPAA type of guidelines that were qualified in the COPA mechanisms and what have you. What we are seeing is legislation is starting to, it did with Illinois was the first state to really think about what do we put around regulations for mental health therapy. No one followed. No one followed it. They had determined that the benefits of using AI for a therapist, you even mentioned it earlier, right? Many of us do as adults. They determined that the benefits of it are far outweigh the negatives. But we are starting to see Washington just signed a bill this week that is putting some parameters around what you can and cannot do, particularly for children. But for me, it's actually, it helps me because we are way above what they're ever going to regulate. And then that will take out some of those others that are not able to be there. I do anticipate that will probably pick up and other states will sign things like that.
Yeah. Oh, I got to imagine. I would hope so.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We all hope that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there, you mentioned, that there are plenty of avatars out there. This number 70. I got to go ask my kids when I get home if they're using. We've never talked about that. But if 75% of kids are using an avatar in some way, and who knows what percentage of them are using Hello My Friend, are there platforms out there that if there's a parent listening that you would maybe say, hey, ask your kid if they're using this platform or that platform, or maybe there's 2 or 3 that are the major ones. Is there the ones that we should be looking out for that don't have the guardrails that yours has?
Yeah, I think, probably the most well-known is Replica. It, has a lot of the press around it too, in terms of some of the negativity that it has suggested to kids to do harm. That's a very rare thing, and I hesitate to even bring it up because I think parents do, they want the best for their kids. And so they're immediately going to go to the fear of giving something new to their kids. Could this be bad? Yeah. And when they hear in the news that there, was an instance where a child was suggested to commit suicide, that's what they grab onto. That is such a rare thing that's ever happened, and I don't anticipate it will ever happen again, based on now the regulations that have happened and the fact that nobody wants that.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think some companies are going to just go as far as they need to this line, but not beyond. And so that is one company that I think money is a driver in a lot of these situations. Yeah. I can't say that it's not a driver in mine because you can't run a business if you don't have money.
Right.
But I will never put put money ahead of safety.
Yeah.
You see any apps like coming out of like China or something like that are, because there's lax regulations there? Do you see a lot of those happening?
Most, yes. I was just at South by Southwest and went through an exhibit hall, and almost everything was from China. And
really,
most everything was character based. So, it's really difficult we have Maya and Zoe and Eli. Pete, you've interacted with some of them before, but these are kids that look like kids.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to get that done, which it should be. You don't want a bunch of kids out there.
Yeah.
But we do have them. What I saw at South by Southwest at the exhibit hall is really characters. So a lot of character things and that's where Replica and the others are using that kind of, when I say 75% of kids are using, it's often a character. It could be a human character. It could be an animal character. But that's what I saw primarily in the exhibit hall at the tech conference. So there are a lot of apps from China that are coming out, and a lot of them are game oriented. That'd be the other differentiator I would say is that, most of them are some kind of game and giving you rewards for doing things.
Okay.
We're not really going down that path. I don't know if we'll need to at some point. I don't ever want this to become homework for kids or feel like it's a drag to do. And so there may be an opportunity to create a little bit of reward for being in there. I'd rather put that on the parent and have the parent say, hey, if you do this a couple times a week, you get to do your video game or, that kind of reward versus, because I feel like if you start going down the gaming path, you're really creating dependence.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking is the other way of not just a chore, but now I want to do this more than anything because I get that instant gratification of I earned a badge or an award or something on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's scary.
Well, it's just so intriguing because there's so many benefits, and you and I have talked about this so many times about the I'm so excited about what you're doing because it allows each individual kid to have an individual experience that is geared towards where they're at. And it's called the autism spectrum disorder for a reason because there's so many different places that you can live on that spectrum. And our kids are on there, and they're at different spots. But the ability for AI to be able to adjust to where that kid is, I think, is so powerful and so needed. And my own experience, our son had tremendous support all the way through his schooling, but it sounds bad to say, but it could have been better. I'm not saying that they did anything wrong. I'm just saying that whole experience could have been enhanced if there was this companion that went through his education with him, that knew his learning style, knew what what motivated him to get his work done in a
customized
healthy
learning.
way. 100%.
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the real power of what you've built, is that ability to make that adjustment and meet these kids where they're at. So I think it's like anything else. There's two sides to the coin, right? You can get tremendous value, and then you've got crazy shit that, while rare,
Mhm.
can still happen on the other side of that. And AI is not the only technology that's like that. Nuclear energy is the same thing.
Sure.
It can power 1 million homes, or it can blow up a city.
Million homes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's always inherent risk in everything you do. And so I do feel like this is definitely filling a gap that is not out there right now for kids in this space. And it's filling it very ethically, safely. Just to put in a plug for, we are on an open AI, but we have a wrapper. So that's what differentiates our technology and make sure it's guarded and safe, Darrell. And this has been tested for over 10 years. So Vern AI is the wrapper that is supporting Hello, My Friend. And the number of conversations that have been had on that platform is already 10,000 plus. And we're not seeing any kind of deviations or hallucinations. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it gives me confidence to go out in front of a clinician or a parent and say, no, I feel good I would put this in front of my own child. And so I think that there is a differentiator there to help people over that fear.
Shout out to Craig Tucker and Dan Hungerford.
For sure,
Exactly who I was
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's just so cool and so helpful, and it's the right time. I think our experience is different because we raise kids that are on the spectrum, but I think even society has learned so much more about these kids and what they're dealing with, and now we have this technology to kind of take it that next step. I think it's just the right time to really bring this to light and help a lot of kids. So.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, it's really for me, it's a translator, right? It's between neurotypical, neurodivergent, and artificial intelligence. How do we collectively bring this all together?
Yeah.
And it occurred to me the other day just how AI can be so helpful just in little situations that I think I might have mentioned this on my reply as well. But, a person has an idea in their mind and a vision, and how you articulate that. It's not about not having more ideas. It's about how you articulate that and somebody to pick that up, right? And so AI actually helps that. And the example I was talking with a friend about the other day was they're recently married and, both have ideas about how they want to do their house and trying to describe it. And the other one's kind of like, maybe, I don't know. But just simply putting that into a picture on AI and saying, hey, do you want pink curtains or do you want white curtains or do you want black? Now we both are seeing the exact same thing, and we can make a decision together and feel good about that decision going forward.
Yeah.
Prototyping it.
Yeah.
So what it seems like it's doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it just made me stop and think, like, AI really can help bridge if you use it as a collaborative partner, not okay, this is the answer I'm going to get, and I either like it or I don't like it. No, if you don't like it, stay open to it.
Yeah.
Right.
And explore more about what could be and what can you learn from this, and poke holes.
Yep.
And use it as a bit of a sparring partner. Coming back to how, we started this conversation around collaboration and being a partner versus an answer.
Yeah, and I ask both of you, kind of going to your point of a sparring partner, how are you using, like, if we could give some examples for listeners of, ways to use it as from an adversarial viewpoint. Like sometimes I'll start with one if you guys have examples too, but I'll write something, or I'll ask AI to write a policy as an example. And I'm not sure if I'm covering everything. So then I'll say, hey, thank you, thanks for building that. But now I want you to look at it from a critical standpoint, like be my worst enemy and reread this policy that you just wrote, but now you're going to critique your own.
Look for the gaps.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've had success using it that way, and I'm assuming you guys have. I'm sure you both have, but you have your own examples to share in that?
I guess a couple that I have done, like in the voice mode when I'm using it, and I'm literally using it as a sparring partner. I'll have it ask me questions about like certain knowledge, like if I'm trying to learn a new platform, or if I'm trying to understand a concept better, I'll kind of regurgitate it back into there, and I'll say, now ask me questions to kind of quiz me on it so I can better understand this. And it'll ask me and I'll say, yep, the way you answered it was fine, but I would add this part into it as well. I've also used it to build prompts for me. So instead of you're asking it, build this policy, now read the policy and make sure it's correct. I actually have taken it back a couple steps fairly recently doing this and going in and saying, on chat mode, build me a prompt that does X, Y, and Z, but just build me the prompt. Don't build the output yet. I just want the prompt.
Yep.
And I've gotten it where it's like a page and a half worth of prompt, but it's very detailed. It's very specific because it's asking me questions. And I'll say, ask me questions to kind of understand what I'm looking for in this prompt. And it'll say, okay, answer this question. Okay, answer this. And it just goes through a series of questions, builds the prompt. And then I read it and I go, yeah, that's what I want, but let's tweak a couple things. Now let's put that into Cowork or into, ChatGPT and say, now execute this.
Yeah, I love that idea too of AI can just kind of go off and do so many things. But if you direct it to say either do not respond or take this one thing first and don't give me anything more, it reacts, right? And it does what you ask it to. And to be able to control, in this, the case study that was referenced that was published in Chief Learning Officer recently, that's what we taught. So we worked with an organization. We had probably 250 people who were participating. And the problem was that they came to us to say, we got all these AI tools and nobody's really using them.
Yeah.
We got about 10% of our organization who's tapping into this. It's mostly research people. And so how do we get this changed? And so human behavior, human development is really the place where I came at it from more of a human behavior and change readiness standpoint versus a technology standpoint. And we implemented a series of 3 workshops to really help them develop their curiosity first, give them a framework for curiosity. So see, seek, and search are kind of 3 elements of curiosity that we taught them to think about. AI, not look for answers, be curious. Can you see something differently? Can you seek out a different opinion or a different perspective? Can you search a different way of this and think like a lawyer, think like a marketer, think like a finance person? So that was the direction we went with them. And then the second place was when things get hard or sticky is your courage, right? Again, it's curiosity and courage. So you can have curiosity, and then when things start getting uncomfortable, can you still have the courage to step in and test it differently, to try something differently, or to trust? That was probably the biggest aha out of that case, was the trust that people needed to have in this. But again, we provided a safe environment for them to do this. We did a learn, practice, perform opportunity for 3 workshops and allowed them to really explore in a safe place where they knew nobody's watching, nobody's taking any of my data, and the company's not looking at what I'm doing. It's just allowing me a safe place to explore. So the beauty of it, right? We moved from, there was probably 15% of the population that was highly confident in using AI. We moved to 60% of that group now highly confident. And if you think about, they now have a collaborator and a tool that they can use in their everyday work, maximizing their thinking, the output for the organization is significantly increased, because now they're not just focused on the day-to-day minutia that they have to do and taking them away from the creative thinking that they could do. They now are focused on what they're really capable of.
Yeah. Yeah.
But coming back to, are you open to and staying open to what this possibility is and not just accepting what that answer is?
Yeah.
So I went on a little tangent there off your question, but
it was perfect because we had Stacy Paul from Array of Engineers here earlier. And I think maybe 3 different times in the interview, she said, normalize it. And that you just took that in a very deep dive, but really explained like how, instead of just saying normalize it, which we didn't press her on, a lot of how they were doing it, but you just did a deep dive on what normalizing it looks like, be intentional and create a safe space and create structure for people to get used to it and get to the point where 60% were highly confident is from 10 to 60. Mm-hmm. That's impressive. Mm-hmm. Really impressive.
And, I think the statistics are impressive, but even more impressive to me is that then, going back a couple months later and testing the language, they were still using the language, which to me, that says sustainability. right? Not
Yeah.
just in the moment
Yeah.
was I confident, but now it's sustainable that they can build from that. But it required people to slow down. It's not about more tools. It's about readiness and about getting people in a point where they can use these and see how they can validate their work, take away the fear of this is going to replace me,
Yep.
which was a huge thing. This was 18 months ago that we did the actual workshop, and then the study's been released just recently. But the huge fear of what is this going to do to my work. Now they started to realize I don't have to be afraid of that.
Right.
I only have to be afraid if I'm not using it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope people listening pay attention to what you just said, and even about the normalizing it too, because all people are seeing on the news is that 95% of AI initiatives are failing. And I think it's a leadership issue. To me, it's not a technology issue. And if those leaders are not allowing and creating that safe space and creating that structure for people to learn, you can't just buy a bunch of Copilot licenses and hope your business transforms. Like, that's not how this is going to work.
Right.
You have to be intentional. So, and I never really got into change management that much, but I'm seeing so much in all of the research that I'm doing is really coming back to change management too, and how that's impacting, AI adoption. So I'm forcing myself to
Big time.
get
Mm.
more into like learning how to really be effective there too. So it's leadership is what's stalling that adoption.
All right, we got to wrap this up.
Son of a.
That went fast.
We actually went
I know,
over our
I-
time, which is
We're overtime. Oh my goodness, that went
So-
really fast.
Did.
so. Tell our viewers where they can find you.
Yes. So hellomyfriend.io is our website. Please go on there, explore it, put yourself on the beta list. We'll reach out to you and give you a demo. You can reach me on LinkedIn, Amy Stratbucker. Oxenrider is in the middle there. But you don't have to look for Oxenrider. Just Amy Stratbucker on LinkedIn. And look forward to connecting with people. I would certainly hope that if anybody's out there who is a parent to a neurodivergent child, who maybe even just a child who could use some help with their social skills and has been in isolation, that you reach out. We're finding that, this technology, certainly I want to support that group of people, but I just had a call this week with someone who's very focused on trauma and tested this and thought, this is really helpful for trauma therapy. And are you open to exploring that avenue with us?
Wow.
So
That's
awesome.
a whole nother thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
another thing. And to think that if we, AI could
Yeah.
really help,
Exactly.
for that. So long answer to your question of how do you get in touch with me, but I would love to connect with anybody who's interested and wants to talk more.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on. We really appreciate the conversation, and I'm sure you'll be back. So I'm sure there's a lot more
Yeah.
we want to talk about.
Awesome. Yeah, this went really fast. Thanks for having me. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, everybody, and make sure you hit the like and subscribe. Bye, everybody.